What's up, guys? This is Carter Thomas with Coin Mastery TV. Make sure you go to coinmastery.com/invest. Get on the newsletter list, the PDFs, get everything up to speed, especially if you're new here, and join us on this incredible financial revolution. I am just getting back from a really great weekend in Las Vegas. I was on a panel for a buddy of mine has a big crypto group, and I was with a panel with a bunch of other crypto people. A couple hundred people came to the event. It was super awesome to be able to meet. A lot of Coin Mastery viewers came, and also just people in general. Got me really fired up about ongoing events, meetups for everybody who's been asking. It's on the list for LA, New York, another one in San Francisco. Hopefully in the next month or so. I'll be traveling a bunch already, but definitely excited. And if you have not gone to any events yet, or a meetup or conferences, I would really encourage you to. It's so exciting to be around other people, to learn from other people, to just be around the energy. It's really contagious, and it's just really exciting. And I think that's a huge part of why this is such a incredible time in our lives, beyond the profits and the technology and the disruption and the revolution, just the community of all this. This is what gets me really excited. And we had a great time. And I'm just, it's nice to be back. Beautiful, foggy, rainy day in San Francisco, as you'd expect. Bigger news, though. Today we're talking about Bitcoin, Ethereum, a little bit of what's going on with this dip, I guess you could call it, the kind of uncertain area of what's happening with Bitcoin. We're going to talk about Ethereum to a certain extent, how it relates, but really why this is all happening. And I would say the biggest question that I got asked from a lot of people in the audience, and as just chatting with people one-on-one or in groups, when's this altcoin run going to cool off? When's the thing going to happen? Because in many ways, I think everyone would agree. Wow, that's really bright. I need to turn that down for a second. A lot of people would agree that some of the gains we're seeing, 100%, 200% each day, are completely unrealistic. And so what's going to be, how long do we have, things like that? And obviously, I don't know the exact answer, but I'm going to try to at least share my thoughts on this. So opening up Bitcoin, which is where we usually start, because Bitcoin drives everything else. And if you're trying to follow anything other than Bitcoin first, you can do all the analysis, all the fundamental analysis, technical analysis, macro, everything on a coin. But if Bitcoin decides to ramp or to tank, it blows out everything else, at least for now, with the dominance as it is. So you can see this. I'm keeping these same technicals on the chart that we had last week, just so that you guys can see this unfolding. We're on the 4-hour, and you can see this trend line, which is really kind of, it's going back to the, I guess, mid-November bottom here, right around, 5,700-ish? And it's touching a few different trend points. And you can see that it's meeting at the 50% fib retracement. That's really where we're looking. And you can see that there was a wick that came down last night, which we'll talk about. And we're seeing a bit of a bounce now. The candle is slowly getting smaller. If you go down to the 1-hour, you can see how this is kind of unfolding in real time. And as you guys know, the big story is always in the volume. And with this bounce, there's actually not a whole lot of volume, relatively speaking, to some of these other big drops. Now, not counting this almost a accumulation phase. Does this mean that this is the bottom? It's hard to tell, but it shows that there is some serious support at this particular point. And it's not a coincidence that this is where the trend line and the Fibonacci cross over. So we're keeping an eye on that. I would like to see a little bit more volume to really make it bounce up. But at the very least, if you can stay above this trend line, at least for the next day or so, that's a good sign. If not, it may come back down, and we'll go from there. But really, the reason why you should care about this is not because you may be investing in Bitcoin, or maybe you're not, but because if this thing keeps going sideways, the altcoin stuff is not going to change. It's actually probably just going to keep fueling these altcoins going crazy. If Bitcoin goes down, you may see a dampening on the altcoin because people will start getting scared that we're going into a big bear market. They liquidate a lot of coins that they don't think are very good. If it goes up, there's going to be a flight back to Bitcoin as a bit of a hedge against the altcoin, whatever, or people are going to start holding as opposed to trying to flip it. So we are at a very critical juncture right here with Bitcoin, and we're going to watch these technicals because this is really the indicator in the short term. Over the next few months, my personal opinion, it's going to ramp like crazy. These institutional money is going to come in. These hedge fund bonuses are going to hit in the next few weeks. A lot of money is going to come in. ETFs are going to go. There's some theories that think that people are, that a lot of these altcoins are being pumped so that people can accumulate Bitcoin, right? You pump an altcoin, you start selling it off. That's a good way to accumulate Bitcoin without actually messing with the price over here. It's remember what markets do is it moves money from weak hands to strong hands, from the masses to the few. Whatever methods are required to make that happen, it will happen. And so the theory can all be baked into the chart, as always, but remember that that's what's always trying to happen. And at the end of the day, Bitcoin is really the de facto currency of crypto right now. And it probably will be for the next year or two. So keeping that in mind, always remembering that. Same with Ethereum. You can see that there's always these accumulation phases, which I've highlighted with these fancy new ellipses that hopefully will give you a better representation. And you can see when it goes sideways, it really just accumulates. You get these volume spikes, which just drive the price up. This is a really interesting chart structure that you're starting to notice. You're either seeing these staircases or you're seeing the parabolic with a big volume spike at the bottom. But this is the way you want to decide, hey, is this going to pop soon or is this going to accumulate soon? We're on the 4 hours, so you can see Ethereum, it had a little bit more of a gradual run up, but you can start to see it coming down. You may start to see a bit more of an accumulation along the same lines before the next big run up. But, really loosely speaking, the best way to tell if Ethereum is going to do well is just to check and see how many pending transactions are stuck on Etherscan, right? How backed up is the network? That means that's how much activity is going. That typically drives the price until they can solve the scalability issue. But as much as I tend to be more, I like Bitcoin and I think Ethereum is interesting, but it's got a lot of, it's not perfect by any means. The recent action of Ethereum has been interesting. It's starting to prove out some pretty useful, interesting use cases, specifically with these decentralized exchanges. But some of the new products that are coming out on Ethereum are actually, they're getting better. They're getting more interesting than I expected. So I still own a bunch of Ethereum. I still have a skeptical eye on Ethereum, especially as a store of value or even as a currency. But as a platform, starting to change my mind a little bit, which is great. It's good for the ecosystem and it may be really good for the price. So keeping an eye on that. What I'm really looking at is not necessarily is the price going to go up. I'm seeing if this accumulation, whatever you call it, like the previous will continue to do this again. If we're going to get another accumulation a few days before another run up or before another down drop, will it accumulate or what's going to happen? That's really what I'm looking at from an Ethereum standpoint. Now, one other big piece to keep in mind, let's zoom in, is the Bitcoin dominance. And I think the 1 month is probably going to be the best showing of this. And this is a really good way to visualize the power of, or I should say, the relative growth of the alt market versus the Bitcoin market. As Bitcoin dominance decreases, the money flows into altcoins. And the amount of money there is, I mean, the market cap overall is at 743,000. That's been changing, which I'll show you guys in a second. But you can see this other, you see how it says others is the gray chart, 23.47. That's all the new altcoins. That's not the top 10 market cap. So you're seeing a bit of an increase, especially in things like Ripple has had an enormous month, but the others column has also done really well, which has pulled some back from the Bitcoin dominance. Now, what does this mean for you? It means that if this Bitcoin dominance starts to surge back up, which is what institutional money theoretically should do, that's got to take it away from someone else. And typically where it's going to pull from the first is the coins with the people that have the weakest hands. Who's going to have the weakest hands? The people that chase the money, that buy the bad products that are going through the roof. So you should adjust your strategy accordingly. I know for myself, that's why I try to stay away from low quality stuff. And that's why I try to do my research, try to capitalize on the opportunities that are coming up in these altcoin markets, right? Still being able to capitalize on some of these big swings, but know that the writing is on the wall. And if you got to be holding some Bitcoin, you got to be hedging yourself just so that when this does ramp up and just drops a lot of these altcoins, you're not stuck holding the bags, right? The musical chairs the music doesn't stop running out. So these are really important metrics to keep watching, to keep your eyes on, as opposed to, hey, what's going to be the biggest, what's had the biggest drop today, and then what should I buy? Because it's a tactic, and I will be first to admit it can work right now. There's a time in a snapshot in history right now where a lot of these tactics can and do work, but the key to success in this market right now is knowing the game you're playing. It's okay if you want to try to chase these coins and rip the tactics and try to do the pumps, like that can work, but just be honest with yourself and know that what game you're playing. Do not get caught up in it and be like, oh, this is always going to be working. Because I think it was Ari Paul tweeted this a long time ago, where he said, the minute you start thinking that making money is inevitable in a market with a certain tactic is when you get screwed. So just know the game you're playing and have a plan, have an exit plan specifically. Now, a lot of you may have woken up and seen your blockfolio or your portfolio in general very, very taking a huge dive, and there was a big sell-off right around 6 a.m., which is East Coast, West Coast in the U.S., 6 a.m. Pacific. And the reason why, it looks like CoinMarketCap delisted a lot of Korean exchanges, which automatically just drops the perceived price. And the reason why is because Korean prices were way higher on CoinMarketCap than other exchanges were. And the problem is, when you see this price on CoinMarketCap, this is a blend of all the different exchanges. So if you clicked on Bitcoin, for example, there's no one particular price of Bitcoin. There are multiple prices. They're just on different exchanges. And so what CoinMarketCap is starting to do is delist a bunch of the Korean exchanges, which messed up the price, and they may be retroactively starting to realize that that might not have been a good idea, because there's so many people that are API pulling data out of this site, which can influence a lot of buying decisions. But that's what happened. So what that means is that the price didn't actually drop. It's just that the price that a lot of people were seeing was a blended average price that was higher than it probably should have been. The median price was actually lower, which is what happened, and that API distributed to however many apps and sites and spreadsheets that were using it. And so it caused people to freak out a bit. Is this the only reason? Absolutely not. We never know the full extent of the reasons, but this is one of the pieces. This is certainly one of the pieces that a lot of people are talking about that could lead to that. Also makes you realize how much people are just gauging their buying decisions based on price and not based on fundamentals or roadmaps or future tech or anything, which, like I said, I don't think that there's anything necessarily wrong with that. You just got to know what game you're playing. And if you're playing that game, this is the kind of stuff, this is why FUD and manipulation and media can really mess with your decision-making process. The other piece that came out, I think it came out yesterday or last night, was there's a rumor that China... It wasn't like on a piece of news. It was a leaked document, I believe, that was in Chinese, and they are going to start to try to phase out mining by essentially taxing and regulating electricity, land usage that's near water, which is where most mining is, and lots of the things that are required to have a big and successful mining operation. So they know that they can't actually go around and find people with mines, but they could really make it hard to mine with the amount of usage that this requires. So if this ends up being true, as many of you know, China is by far the biggest mining country in the world. I think it's 70 or 80% or something like that of the world's mining is done in China. So if they start to regulate that, or at least make it cost prohibitive, really expensive, that becomes an issue. But realize that that's not a long-term issue. That's a short-term issue, because if China screws them, there's going to be other countries that see an opportunity. Maybe it's Russia, maybe it's North Korea, maybe it's South Korea, maybe it's Iceland, anybody. There's going to be a country that does the opposite, that actually incentivizes mining and says, we know this is a global currency and we're not going to try to control this. We actually want to embrace this. That's what's so amazing about crypto, especially Bitcoin, is its international implications, its international spread. So if there is any sort of short-term impact of this particular, if this goes through and ends up being true, there very well could be a drop in price. And more importantly, there could be a huge increase in transaction times and pricing, because without the miners, you can't move the blockchain, right? You can't create new mining transactions. So Bitcoin could essentially just slow down to a crawl until new miners can get up and running in new countries. How long that would take, nobody really knows. Or would it mean a continued flight to other currencies? Would it mean that the Bitcoin dominance continues to tumble? Maybe a lot more money flows over to, Ethereum is still on mining, but you see stuff like IOTA or Raiblocks that doesn't require mining. I'm not saying that's exactly what's going to happen, but implications, right? People are going to still want to move coins, things like Ripple or Stellar Lumens, all have pros and cons based on their proof of work versus proof of stake system. So it's an interesting implication, but in the very, very short term, it drives a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt, as does this. It doesn't necessarily mean anything is going wrong. So keep an eye on all of this. I think that it's just like a psychological pullback. I think we're going to continue to see Bitcoin going sideways until we start to see some of these institutions start to buy in slowly. You start to see more of an accumulation phase, and then we keep an eye on the charts. A couple random other pieces of news. I don't know if anybody saw this, but they did. I don't know, maybe a month ago, I tweeted about how CNBC was doing a tutorial on Coinbase. And I actually think that's a great thing. I think that the more we can show the average person that it's possible to go buy Bitcoin or Litecoin or Ethereum, it's a good thing, right? We want to get more people involved and excited about this. Now they're getting into buying altcoins, specifically in this case, Ripple, on Poloniex. And that's where I personally get a little, I don't know what the word is. And it's not that I don't want people to buy altcoins. I do, right? In my free course, like, here's Bittrex, here's Binance. You can go do it. But the more steps you add into the process, the more complicated it is, and the more people there's more possibility for people to either lose their coins or do something incorrectly or have a negative experience, which would inevitably make them jaded on crypto or could increase the wrong type of attention. Right? I think crypto does need more regulation. We need smart regulation. We just need clear guidelines so that we can grow this thing. But the more complex you make the process for people who aren't necessarily invested, like if you're watching these videos or reading into Bitcoin or crypto and you understand that there is a process and there's a safety requirement, that's good. You should get into altcoins and you should join us. If you're watching on CNBC and you have no idea what you're doing and you just kind of, seems like a really good idea, and you try to settle this up and you leave all your money on the exchanges, that's when it gets, in my opinion, I don't think we're quite ready for that yet. Again, I don't say that because I don't want anyone to not have an opportunity. It's just that, that it gets complex for people that don't, if it's not something you want to invest your time into. So I'm cautiously hopeful about this sort of thing. But, if anyone is out there, if you have friends or family and they want to get into crypto, inevitably at some point they're going to say to you, hey, good gains, but I'm hearing about all these coins that are going up 5 million% or whatever. You know, like, what's this Verge thing? Don't tell them to buy Verge, by the way. If that's the case, you know, help them understand that it gets more complicated. It's not as simple as buying on Coinbase. There's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of operational security with hard wallets. And if they still want to do it, you know, send them to my free course. There's, you know, coinmastery.com/Bitcoin. It's all free. There's no pitch or anything. Just help them out. But the education process is really important. So I just want to keep that in mind. As bullish as I am on crypto, as much as I want to change the world and help as many people as I can, hopefully we can do it the smart way. Last but not least, by any means, there's a great article that I was reading this morning about what's going on with these altcoins. I'll link this up and how this is all really starting to play out. There's tons of information in this, so I'll just link it up. But it draws a lot of parallels between what happened in June versus what's happening now, what's happening with Bitcoin and Bitcoin's dominance, what's happening anytime there is some sort of major money-making event very quickly, is that it usually doesn't really last for the long term. And the question is always how long it's going to last. But I think that this can definitely help you get excited and also understand about what's happening right now, make better decisions about it, make your own decisions about this, because like everything else in crypto, nobody has a crystal ball. Nobody knows exactly what's going to happen. But the more you can make a decision that kind of reflects your own risk, the better. And I'll leave it at that. I think that's really what I'm excited about. Bitcoin, Ethereum, obviously Litecoin I'm bullish on, but I figured we'd talk about this these few days. And again, if nothing else, if you're going to play this Binance, KuCoin, Bittrex, altcoin pump game, I don't think it's a bad thing. It's just know that that's the game you're playing. And the music is going to stop at some point, maybe in the next few days, maybe the next few weeks, maybe not for another 2 months, but it's going to stop and Bitcoin's going to just take things back. It will happen. And it's up to you with how much you are rolling the dice, how big of the dice you are willing to play, so that you have a balance with the pumps, with your Bitcoin holdings. Just know you're playing that game. It's a very important piece during these mania frenzy phases. Cool. All right, guys. Happy Monday. It's good to be back. It's great to be back. I'm excited about this. We hit 80,000 subscribers. Amazing times. My goal is 100,000, which I hopefully we will hit in the next few weeks, and we will go from there. So with that, I'll catch you guys soon, and peace out.